In the prestigious neighborhood of Aspen Ridge, everyone knew the name Rose Sterling. But for the last decade, they only knew her as the Silent Statue. My grandmother hadn't spoken a single word since the day my grandfather passed away. To the world, she was a tragic figure of grief. To my father and his siblings, Uncle Marcus and Aunt Lydia, she was nothing more than an inconvenient line item in their monthly budgets. They were titans of industry, CEOs and socialites who viewed Grandma's silence as a sign of a decaying mind. Eventually, their patience ran out. Under the guise of professional care, they moved her out of the family estate and into Meadowview, a sterile, underfunded nursing home on the edge of town. It was a place where people were sent to be forgotten. I was the only one who didn't forget. Every Saturday, I'd drive 2 hours to sit in that cramped room that smelled of bleach and loneliness. I'd bring her favorite lavender tea and tell her everything. My struggles in college, my broken heart, my dreams of becoming a writer. She never replied, but her hand would tighten around mine, and her blue eyes, sharp as diamonds, seemed to record every word. My father laughed at me. "Maya, you're wasting your youth on a woman who doesn't even know your name," he'd say, swirling his expensive scotch. He was wrong. Last Tuesday, the call came. Rose Sterling was gone. The funeral was a masterclass in hypocrisy. My uncles cried crocodile tears for the cameras, while Aunt Lydia was already checking her watch, anxious to get to the reading of the will. They expected a massive payout, the Sterling millions, the offshore accounts, the vineyard in Napa. But when we gathered in the mahogany-lined office of the family lawyer, there was no grand ledger. Instead, there was a dusty, battered wooden sewing box sitting on the desk. My father sneered. "Is this a joke? Where are the deeds?" The lawyer, a man who looked like he'd seen 1,000 sins, ignored him and handed the box to me. Inside, buried under tangles of old yarn, was an antique golden key and a handwritten note that made the room go silent. For Maya, the only one who truly heard what I never said. The outrage was immediate. Uncle Marcus slammed his fist on the table, demanding the key be handed over, claiming Grandma was of unsound mind. But the lawyer didn't budge. That key belonged to a private, high-security vault at the First National Bank, established in 1920. As we drove to the bank in a tense convoy of black SUVs, I could feel the heat of their greed radiating off them. They weren't mourning a mother, they were hunting a treasure. When we reached the vault, the heavy steel door groaned open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. My family pushed past me, expecting stacks of cash or rare jewelry. Instead, the vault was nearly empty. On a single velvet shelf sat a legal file and an old blackened VHS tape. No gold, no diamonds. The disappointment in the room was palpable, quickly turning into bitter rage. 10 years of nursing home bills for a damn videotape? Aunt Lydia shrieked. But then the lawyer opened the legal file. It wasn't a bank statement. It was the original land grant for the entire downtown tech district, the most valuable real estate in the country. My grandfather had put it in a private trust that only Rose could control. And according to the new deed, it had been transferred entirely to my name the day before she lost her speech. But the question remained. Why the silence? Why would a woman with the power to crush empires spend 10 years in a room the size of a closet without saying a word? My father snatched the VHS tape and demanded we play it at the estate immediately. He was convinced it was the code to a hidden Swiss account. We returned to the Sterling mansion, the very house she was kicked out of, and inserted the tape into an old player. The screen flickered with static before an image stabilized. It was Grandma Rose, 10 years younger, sitting in her favorite armchair. She looked healthy, vibrant, and most importantly, like she was about to go to war. The room went so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. On the screen, Rose Sterling leaned forward, her voice crisp and authoritative, the voice of the woman who had helped build an empire. If you are watching this, it means I am finally free of the vultures I raised. My father gasped, his face draining of color. She explained that 10 years ago, on the night of my grandfather's funeral, she had been sitting on the balcony when she heard voices. Below, it was her children, my father, Marcus, and Lydia. They weren't grieving, they were discussing how to use a cocktail of medication to make her appear senile so they could seize the trust. I realized that night, Rose's voice echoed from the speakers, that as long as I had a voice, you would use it against me. You would twist my words and gaslight my mind. So I chose the only weapon you couldn't take: silence. She revealed that she had spent a decade playing the broken old woman role to observe them. She watched them sell off the family's integrity, watched them treat people like trash, and most importantly, she watched me. Maya was my eyes and ears in a world that wanted me dead, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. She gave me her heart when you only wanted my wallet. The tape ended with a final, devastating blow. She had recorded every conversation they had in her presence over the last 10 years using a hidden device in her worthless sewing box. Every plot, every tax evasion, every confession of their crimes was documented and already sent to the district attorney's office. As the screen went black, sirens began to wail in the distance. The police were already at the gates. My family, the great Sterlings, were left with nothing more than the clothes on their backs and a prison sentence. I walked out of that mansion with the golden key in my hand, finally understanding that my grandmother hadn't been silent at all. She had been screaming the truth for 10 years. I was just the only one who bothered to listen. If you believe that true wealth is found in the soul and not in the bank, hit that like button and subscribe.